A big reason why obese people aren't in these kinds of games is because they can't actually do the physical activity that the characters are doing. No one who is 400 pounds is doing the kind of marathon running that video game characters do to get from place to place, nor can obese people jump around like an acrobat to slay demons.
Yes, of course, the most unrealistic aspect of a fat video game character slaying demons is that the character is fat, and not that they are, slaying demons. Famously realistic and existing demons. Hey! A little while back, I saw a video from this anti-woke, anti-SJW channel called Think Before You Sleep. I made a response to it because it was an odd video, in my opinion, and I thought it'd be fun to do a little more writing training on something like that. For every one of my essays in school, I phoned it in, so I truly do need the practice. I was hoping that he would eventually respond to it, and lo and behold, and other stuff, he did. Why woke content is trash, the video is called. There's me on the thumbnail. Hi to me. It's a video about my video, which was a video about his video. Big drama alert. Woke Keemstar signing in. If you need to get up to speed, all these videos are linked below in episodic order, but if your brain just can't handle that sort of relentless pounding, I'm going to try and give as much context as is necessary. This video from Think Before You Sleep has 4 main arguments. We're going to go through each of them, but before we do, I want to start off with a smaller point concerning the term woke. I think this will be helpful to frame what this channel is sort of all about. After that, we'll get into the meat and the potatoes and the broccoli and sour cream for the rest of it. But for now, let's go. Okay, let's go. So in my first video, I made a sarcastic remark about the vacuous nature of the term woke as it is used by conservatives. What does wokeness mean in this case? Well, we're going to find out, I'm sure. When conservatives attempt defining that term, the definitions they give are almost always incoherent and contradictory. Think Before You Sleep, though, was kind enough to provide a very simple, direct definition for us, one that I thought was interesting, so let's hear it now. Roll the clip. Well, we're going to find out, I'm sure.
Communism. Woke means communism. Now, the breadtubers love to say, that's not what that term means. It used to mean something else, as some sort of gotcha on the anti-woke crowd, but words change meaning all the time, and it was the communists who were using the term woke, and thus, that's what the word means now.
Okay, so the first question to ask here is that if the Dove ad is woke, according to him, that means that it's communist. Where is the communism in that ad? How exactly is it communist? What are you talking about? This point goes totally unexplained other than him talking about who used the term initially, which is not a definition of that term. Now, with that said, in a sense, Think Before You Sleep is not wrong here. To conservatives, the words woke and communist are extremely similar in the way that they are used. These terms mean roughly stuff that I, as a conservative, don't like. Little Joel, the linguistic research channel, his definition is spot on here, I think. As woke, meaning just left-leaning politics, liberal stuff.
Woke, it means liberal. It means being a liberal. It means having liberal politics, particularly about race and gay people. It means liberal.
Conservatives' inability to coherently define these terms doesn't make them meaningless, far from it. They can mean anything conservatives want them to, because they are catch-all terms. And how do we know this? Well, just look at all the things that they use woke to describe. Identity politics, climate change, getting vaccinated, political correctness, communism, liberalism, 2 ideologies that are definitely the same thing. Just ask any communist on Twitter what they think of liberals. They're going to say a bunch of really nice things. Black mermaids, black actors in general, really, LGBTQ education, fat people in marketing, and my personal favorite, large corporations. Famously communist capitalist corporations. I just thought it was interesting that he basically treated this point as self-evidently true, that woke means communist because communists said it once, when anyone outside of these anti-woke echo chambers would know that that is just a very easily disprovable falsehood. But okay, let's move on now to the main points of the video. Here we go. First up, a primary point in this video concerns women's representation in video games. Dove, in their Real Virtual Beauty ad campaign from the last video, they presented some statistics about this topic which were the basis for the campaign. The stat in question here reads, 2 out of 3 female gamers in the UK say that there is a lack of representation in video games. For context, last video, Think Before You Sleep argued against this statistic by pretty much saying that he doesn't believe it.
Where did you get that number? Did you simply ask 3 of your British friends? Because there is no way that most British women are eternally offended snowflakes who care about that kind of stuff.
In this video, his first argument against this statistic is that the research behind it wasn't cited in the ad, and therefore we must assume that it is incorrect or a lie.
Okay, so I'm supposed to do Dove's homework for them? Dove is the one who brought up the data. They're responsible for telling the audience where their stats came from. It's not my job to Google it for them. If someone gives statistical data and doesn't say where they got it from, then the proper thing to do is to take it with a grain of salt or assume that they are lying.
Now, this is interesting because while I do agree statistics generally should be cited, that makes the process of fact-checking easier, a lack of citation doesn't inherently mean that statistics are false. That in and of itself is a bad argument against statistical claims, especially when data exists that shows these claims to be true, and we actually found some of that data. In my video, I cited a survey that corroborated these claims from Dove. In the Opinium Women in Gaming report, the one that I presented, the data lines up perfectly with Dove's claims. When you actually ask female gamers, it turns out many of them do feel underrepresented in games. Instead of engaging with this data, though, Think Before You Sleep initially spends a lot of time just decrying the labor of having to do Dove's homework for them, when he very well knows that this is a terrible argument against statistics. He's not addressing the numbers, he's just saying this wasn't in the footnotes and therefore I shouldn't have to take this seriously. The fact that this study wasn't cited below the ad does not invalidate these statistics. To argue against it, you need contradictory data, and Think Before You Sleep does not provide any of that in this video. However, he does eventually address the survey in his video, but when he does, he dismisses it in three fascinating ways. First up, he argues that the study is biased because of how they represent the differences in time spent gaming between men and women.
Let's take a look at this study that Noah found for us. Diversity in Gaming, Thought Leadership. Let's look at the results. It starts by saying that women play games nearly as often as men, just 2 hours less than their male counterparts. Well, I don't like the framing of that at all. That's not nearly, that's a full 20% less. Nearly would be the difference of a few percent, not 1/5 of the total amount. So we're off to a great start with this study trying to make it seem like women play games significantly more than they do. This study isn't heavily biased at all.
So 10 hours of boy gaming versus 8 hours of girl gaming. He doesn't think that those are nearly the same because 8 is 20% less than 10, and that's too much percents for him, so this study is biased and can't be trusted. As a glass half full kind of guy, I would like to point out that 8 being 20% less than 10 also means that 8 is 80% of 10, which is, it's a lot out of 10. To act as if 8 and 10 aren't close numbers is, I've never seen such pure, unfiltered, raw Chernobyl levels of cope, especially when those numbers are describing hours spent playing video games in a week. What that means is that the women in the study play games on average an hour and 10 minutes per day, whereas the men play on average an hour and 25 minutes per day. That's just 15 extra minutes per day. Are girl gamer hours affected by inflation or something? Is the exchange rate between those shit right now? I don't get it at all. The next way that he dismisses the study is where he just straight up lies about what it says on the screen.
But let's take a look at the number that Noah pointed out. It says that 69% of women say that there aren't enough female characters in games. Dove's ad was about body positivity, so by their statements, a reasonable person would infer that Dove was implying...
A reasonable person, there's your issue.
A reasonable person would infer that Dove was implying that 2 out of 3 women believe that there's not enough body positivity representation in video games, not that there aren't enough female characters. Those two things aren't the same. More women does not equal more body positivity. If these are actually the stats that Dove used, then they are lying to you or wildly misrepresenting that study.
See how he bakes in this assumption there that this number must be about body positivity, because that's what the ad is about, even though that's not what the statistic says, right? If you look on the screen, there it is. The statistic saying lack of representation, not body positivity. I genuinely can't tell if he's being dishonest here or if he just refuses to accept this because he doesn't believe it. But again, statistics are not invalidated by one's refusal to believe them. He actually does this again in a different spot in the video. This one's kind of a digression, but I think it's really funny. He tries to justify one of the claims from the last video that one of the most common things women ask for in relationships is leadership from men. I laughed this point off when he initially made it, but he doubles down on it again, so I think we should address it.
This, by the way, is coming from the people who will say, "Source, bro, where's your source, man?" on literally every claim that you make after telling you that you should Google all their data for them. Particularly when one of the most common things women ask for in a relationship is leadership from men.
Source? Can we get a source?
Gee, I didn't know I needed a source for common knowledge. You know that's an exception in research, right? Next, he's going to ask for a source on what color the sky is.
So we're both using the common knowledge exemption there, right? I use it when I laugh off that claim for just being insane, and he does it when he invokes the dating tips clause.
You don't think this is a common knowledge exception? Well then, who has to ask who out on the first date? Is it 50-50? Or is it almost exclusively the men initiating the relationship? That's leadership because leaders are the ones who go first.
These are both of our versions of common knowledge, right? So if it's his version against mine, how do we break this tie? Well, we just Google it, right? And what do you know? Look at that. When you actually ask women what they want in relationships, leadership isn't even in the top 5. I think he underestimated just how bold of a claim he was making there because he compared an easily disprovable falsehood with knowing that the sky is blue, which, you know, that's fun. It's very sassy, very catty from him. Ooh, meow, ooh, meow. These unsubstantiated dismissals of statistics are made because at his core, Think Before You Sleep just doesn't believe stuff. How could women care about representation when he and the people around him do not? Of course, women want to be led in relationships, like kindergartners, you know. Being a line leader is a masculine trait, because that's what he thinks they want. Does what they say actually matter here? No, of course not. Because his knowledge is common knowledge, and, you know, that's all you need. If a survey says women feel underrepresented in games, it must be one of those woke gaming surveys, where they ask a bunch of woke gamers woke questions wokely.
There's no way that much of the general population agrees with this woke narrative, considering that in places like America, half the population are conservatives who don't care about this, and tons of liberals are anti-feminist too.
Half the population, 170 million chuds. Can you imagine? January 6th is just like the Lord of the Rings. Don't put your anti-feminist fantasies in my head, man. It is truly fascinating, though, watching him dance around for his audience and act like 8 hours of gaming is so much less than 10 hours of gaming, and act like not being able to find a study means that the study that we found is wrong, even though the study is right there on the screen proving the thing that he just doesn't believe. This is fun for me looking at that and going, what, man? Huh? Okay, on to Bumbadoo. Ooh, what's up? We're gonna take a quick break to thank the sponsor of today's video, Morgan & Morgan. If you get personally injured in something like a car accident, you're entitled to a lot more than you may know. Hiring a lawyer for something like this can be a daunting thing, but with Morgan & Morgan, it's super easy. You can submit a claim in 8 clicks or less without ever having to leave your home. There's no going into a law office, there's no timely consultations, and you can stay in contact with the team of lawyers via text and the internet phones. You can do this all from your phone, and that includes uploading documents. For more information, go to forthepeople.com or dial pound law, that's pound 529 from your cell phone. Okay, back to the video now. The second main argument in this video is about the sexualization of female characters in video games. His first point on that concerns the practicality of Lara Croft's outfit from the game Lara Croft Tomb Raider. And yes, we're going back over this. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. This feels like an apology video with how much I'm apologizing to you guys. I should have just wrote the script down on my notes app and posted it on Twitter or something.
He doesn't fully clarify why he claims this outfit is impractical, but it sounds like he's saying it's impractical for physical activity. That's not true. How are short shorts and a crop top impeding her mobility?
So, firstly, my argument that Lara Croft's outfit is impractical isn't that it impedes her mobility. It doesn't. It's impractical because in the game, she's getting shot at and attacked by dogs and alligators and other things that want to chew on you. A bunch of bare skin isn't a great defense against those sorts of things, you know? And that's what I said in my previous video, but here he just totally ignores that to talk about how you can wear this and run around, which is an easy thing to argue against, and it's not something I believe. Well played, Epic. Now, all of that isn't me saying that Lara needs to be wearing the Master Chief armor, nor that outfits in video games must adhere to some strict sense of practicality. I don't believe that. The reason I brought up this example, though, is because it's one of many cases in an observable trend of female characters wearing very impractical outfits for the sake of showing more skin and showing more of their unrealistically curvy figures. Anita Sarkeesian, God bless her, she made this same point 6 years ago in the Feminist Frequency video, Lingerie is not armor.
Female heroes in video games might be special agents or soldiers or treasure hunters by trade. They often find themselves in dangerous, physically demanding situations, fighting off bad guys and saving the world. They are typically performing activities that call for practical or protective clothing. But when we look at the types of outfits that female characters are made to wear, we can see that they're both sexualized and completely absurd.
See, this here, all of these absurdly revealing outfits, they are impractical, but they exist because the game designers chose to make them that way. And why'd they do that? Why did Chris Shrigley, Andy Green, Rob Toon, Terry Lloyd, Simon Phipps, Dave Pridmore, Jeremy Heathsmith, Kevin Norburn, and Greg Holmes make Laura wear this outfit? Well, because they wanted to. But also, let's not play dumb here. It's for the boys. It's for boys and men, who these games have always primarily been marketed to. It's for them to look at and say, damn, the video game lady is hot, in a way that doesn't make any sense for the plot of the game. So say the boys and men there. That's me quoting them. On this topic of showing more skin being sexualization, one of the stranger arguments from this video uses a comparison between Lara from Tomb Raider and Cynthia, a character from one of the animated shorts from the Dove ad. His argument goes like this. If Lara is being sexualized for showing a bunch of skin, which he doesn't believe, that's what I argued. If that's the case, then Cynthia, the character from the Dove ad, must also have been getting sexualized because she was wearing pretty much the same outfit, showing just as much skin. Why is Lara being sexualized and Cynthia isn't? He asks, gotcha-ingly.
Are you really going to tell me that this outfit on Lara Croft is an impractical sexualization of the character for the male gaze? But Cynthia here, who is effectively in the same outfit, is not a sexualization of the character?
Yes. Yes, I am, and here's why. There are two important differences between these two examples. The first one is context. Cynthia is wearing this outfit alone in her dressing room after removing her armor. This makes perfect sense in the plot because that's what a dressing room is for. It's where you change, the more you know. Lara, on the other hand, is wearing this outfit for the entire game, despite how obviously impractical it is for her objectives. And yes, Cynthia ends up staying in this outfit as she goes on to continue filming, but I disagree that this means that she is being sexualized. And my reasoning for that is point number 2, character agency. Sorry, I forgot. In Cynthia's story, shedding her armor is her decision, as opposed to a decision made by a group of men trying to sell a game to other men like Tomb Raider. Lara didn't put on her outfit because it is fashionable for her body type, as Think Before You Sleep later implies.
Is she wearing that outfit because she's being sexualized? Or is she wearing that because the outfit is fashionable for her body type?
She didn't put on the outfit at all, actually. Some guys did. Cynthia has agency in the story for her outfit, unlike Lara, and using that agency to wear clothes that show more skin is only sexualization if you make the choice to sexualize her for showing more skin. That is what Think Before You Sleep does in this video by making this comparison. And then he does it again in a more intense manner at the next thing, which is the whole bent over ass shot scenario.
So now we have a bent over ass shot that is center of the frame that adds nothing to the story. They went full on anime camera angles, and somehow they're going to claim that it's not an attempt at in the character.
Now it sucks that we have to do this again because this part makes me honestly pretty uncomfortable. But we do, because Think Before You Sleep here tries to weasel his way out of the perv allegations, and I just cannot let that happen. I'm gonna play this whole build-up clip for context, but just watch how he tries to justify his observation about the anime camera angle. When Think Before You Sleep sees this shot here, to him, it's the same as this shot here. When he looks at this shot, all he sees is this. He's so worked up about seeing a woman from behind that his brain fails to render the rest of the frame.
Actually, I didn't even notice this when I first watched the ad. I only noticed it because I was watching a woman review it, and she pointed out that Cynthia's outfit was sexualized.
So here she is, in less clothes, wearing less clothing, mind you, more revealing outfit. See, that's another part that really says to me that they don't care about sexualization. This isn't a modesty thing. She's wearing basically the exact same outfit that Lara Croft is criticized for wearing.
Notice that this lady doesn't ever say anything about the horny camera angle. She's talking specifically about Cynthia's outfit and how it shows more skin. Think Before You Sleep is the one bringing up the anime backshots thing. But he's sort of laundering that take in with the fact that this lady mentioned the outfit as well. He's like, I would never do a pervert thing like that. See, even a girl agrees with me about how her outfit is revealing. So that must mean that seeing her from behind is inherently sexual. That's sexualization right there, what he's doing. If this is his defense against the pervert allegations, well, he should have went to Morgan & Morgan, because right now it's looking like a life sentence in horny jail. So stupid. Stupid joke. The last point about sexualization that I want to talk about here, it regards body proportions. His argument here goes something like this. Slim, curvy women exist. So, criticizing that body type in female game characters as being sexualized is a way of sexualizing real women that have that body type. There's nothing inherently sexual about this figure, and if you consider it sexualization to see it in a game, then you're the one doing all the sexualizing, you little creep.
Is she wearing that outfit because she's being sexualized? Or is she wearing that because the outfit is fashionable for her body type? Allow me to clarify this because Noah's line of thinking is something that many people use to attack women for how they were born. Two different women can wear the same outfit, and whether you're a slut or not is determined by your body type, not by the clothes you're wearing. These are similar tops, except one girl has curves and one doesn't. Can you tell me which girl is going to get called a slut?
So think before you sleep here acknowledge that there is a stereotypically sexualized figure in our society and culture, the slim woman with curves. As he says, the person on the right is more likely to be sexualized by society because of her figure, and this is something we actually agree on. However, he doesn't stop to wonder why that figure, the one he is admitting is more likely to be sexualized, or called a slut, as he puts it, why that body is so overrepresented in games. All of these characters have some variation of that body type, and that might make a more self-aware person wonder if the video game industry has a sexualization problem. I don't know. The last thing to touch on in this section is where he accuses me of body shaming thin, curvy women for the way that I edited my video by censoring thin, curvy Lara and not average-bodied Lara.
Wait, did he censor thin Lara but kept fat Lara fully in view? Do you not understand that you're body shaming curvy women? This is a body type that real women have. Noah, even you're doing it. I initially thought this was a mistake and he just forgot to censor it because everything else was censored, but this specific image was referred to multiple times and only thin Lara was censored. Unless he doesn't watch his videos for mistakes before uploading, this was done on purpose. Do you not see why I say that body positivity in the cultural zeitgeist is solely about obesity? Noah spent the whole video saying it was wrong for me to criticize obesity because it's air quote, body shaming obese people and that will make those people depressed, but then he straight up body shames thin, curvy women.
Yeah, gotcha. I see. You said this and you did it. Gotcha. Briefly, to his last point there, that body positivity is only about fat people, remember that this ad campaign also represented disabled women. Sam, who is in a wheelchair, and Lily, who has Down syndrome. It's not just about fat people. You know, why lie here? Why? I see this point being made a lot by anti-wokeists, and it's maybe the most deliberately misinterpreted crap ever in the history of ever. The reason fat people are often the focus of body positivity campaigns is that their representation throughout history has been very bad, obviously worse than people who aren't fat. Fat characters are played for laughs, or they are used as plot points for being at their lowest, being defective, needing to go on their glow-up arc, etc. Addressing these stigmas is not the same as shaming people that are not affected by them. And that seems self-evidently true, but in woke bad land, the woke badlands, you can't be doing that sort of thing. You can't be doing all that. To address the other thing he points out there about my censoring, to understand this one, we need to take a little peek behind the YouTube creator curtain. This video on upload kept getting demonetized. The reasons were not specified with a timestamp, as is often the case, so I just started censoring stuff that I figured YouTube might consider sexual content or inappropriate. Much to my annoyance at how it affected the video's presentation, I censored all of these characters, but after uploading that version, it was still ad restricted. So I censored Lara, the one referenced in this same section with all these other people. Interestingly, the video was then cleared with the censors that I applied, despite neglecting to censor average size Lara. And no, that wasn't intentional. It was a 3 a.m. please clear so I can post this final pass in a few hours editing mistake, much like the one with the forehead being censored that he pointed out. You don't have to believe me, and that's whatever, but whether it was intentional or not, to me, plays second fiddle to the fact that it was cleared with only one of the Laras censored. I can't say for sure because, again, there's no timestamp given, but potentially what this might say about here is that the bot only clocked sexualization with the thin, curvy Lara. The one on the right wasn't considered, which is interesting, right? Again, this is speculation, but I am having trouble coming up with any other reason as to why this might be the case, other than, the YouTube system is a little bit broken. And of course, that's also true. Could just be that, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. I don't know. The third main point today concerns fat representation in games. To start off, let's look at a smaller argument about this, how fat people aren't usually in games because they're too fat to be doing the stuff that characters in video games do.
On that note, speaking of realism, a big reason why obese people aren't in these kinds of games is because they can't actually do the physical activity that the characters are doing. No one who is 400 pounds is doing the kind of marathon running that video game characters do to get from place to place, nor can obese people jump around like an acrobat to slay demons.
Yes, of course, the most unrealistic aspect of a fat video game character slaying demons is that the character is fat and not that they are, slaying demons. Famously realistic and existing demons. The same critique could then also be applied to the demons themselves, right? Like fat demons shouldn't be a thing, not because they're demons, but because they're too fat to be doing all that demoning all over the place. Midway through fighting Ornstein and Smog, smoke starts blowing out of this guy's ears because Smog isn't taking water breaks. I love that. So I love it so much. Also, I don't know if Smog is a demon or just a big scary golden boy, but the point stands because I say so. All right, on to the broader point here about fat representation. So I must admit that in my prior video, I made a mistake. Well, two mistakes. The first mistake was the way that I made one of my arguments. I argued that fat representation in media can help promote healthy habits. I did this using a series of studies. First, one that showed how positive self-image is correlated with good mental health. Then, one that showed how good mental health is associated with healthy habits. In hindsight, this line of argumentation is not great. It's a stretch because it relies on a lot of correlations. A good chunk of Think Before You Sleep's video covers this flaw in argumentation. And even though, as Think Before You Sleep pointed out, health at every size education can help fat people improve on their health, he points this out and then dismisses the study, much in the vein of what we saw before.
And I certainly have never seen a real-life example of this stock footage of a thin person eating junk food and an obese person not being able to lose weight despite eating oranges. I have never seen that play out in real life, and real obese people are always significantly overeating and eating junk food.
Despite this, health at every size education is not the same as media representation like we saw in the Dove ad campaign. So I'm hereby raising a white flag on that argument. I think it's a bad argument. Now, with all of that said, the real mistake I made here, I think, was playing devil's advocate with this point in the first place. The reason being, the argument that fat people being represented in media makes people fat is ridiculous on its face. Obesity has been growing in prevalence in America for like 80 years. Mainstream fat positive media is a very new thing. How on earth does it make any sense to point to such media as some serious cause of obesity when clearly there are vastly more significant factors at play? If you're sincerely interested in promoting healthy habits, why is your first target media that, destigmatizes fatness? There are far more worthy targets to that end, like the corporations that heavily market unhealthy foods or the regulations that have shifted how agriculture is subsidized, encouraging the use of healthy ingredients, or the lack of access to healthy organic foods in places like food deserts. Now, in his first video, Think Before You Sleep does bring up Dove's parent company and how they also own a lot of junk food companies, but his critique is not actually about those companies. It's targeted towards body positive media, which again doesn't make much sense considering how little sway, basically none, that actually has in regards to the change in public health over time. I don't think shaming fat people is good, and I think destigmatizing fatness is fine, because stigmatizing it doesn't actually do anything positive. And remember, of course, that the sort of response we've seen to this ad from the anti-woke crowd is not about promoting health. Obviously not. These aren't health channels, they're anti-woke channels, which are political channels. Anytime they're talking about health, they're just concern trolling to continue their political project of decrying degeneracy in media. Fat people are real, they exist, and their inclusion in media should not, in my opinion, hinge on whether or not that fat person is running on a treadmill and eating celery. Limiting their representation as some roundabout individualistic way of getting them to lose weight is insane, full stop, because video games and media aren't and shouldn't be instruction manuals on how to live your life. So, to conclude here, yes, I agree with Think Before You Sleep that I failed to make my case about body positive media helping people lose weight. But my clarification here today is that I shouldn't have to, because it doesn't need to. Media doesn't need to be helping people lose weight all the time. Just media like this can and should exist on its own, and proving that shouldn't require that some weight loss contingency be implemented. It's silly. Chill out, everybody. Leave fucking fat people alone, damn. His final point in this video is a call to leave your internet politics echo chambers. His lead up to that is making the case that my channel and other left-leaning channels like it are echo chambers that discourage you from seeking other perspectives.
There's so much evidence that Noah doesn't see stuff like this because he lives in an echo chamber and doesn't actually listen to the opinions of people on the opposing team with an open mind.
Now, to start off, I do want to point out that whenever I've done these types of response videos, I've always told my viewers explicitly to go watch the stuff that I'm critiquing, and if they're going to engage with it, to do so in a respectful manner. I did this with my response videos to him, and with all the videos of mine that he cites as examples of my echo chamberingness. I feel like that on its own is the opposite of echo chamber behavior, but perhaps, mayhaps, that is not enough for you. Maybe you're saying here, well, Noah, only a small number of people are actually going to do that. Most will just watch your video, and if you're misrepresenting the source material, and then they'll have no idea, and that's an echo chamber right there. And that's fair enough, I guess. But also, that's sort of a problem inherent to this platform. This is just how people consume content and how they subscribe and watch creators that often just agree with their political views. To some extent, all channels will have echo chamber tendencies because of this. Think Before You Sleep is no exception either. A bunch of people came straight from his video to comment on mine, either regurgitating his arguments all over my face and mouth verbatim, or telling me to kill myself, or calling me a pedophile, or calling me weird looking. Woke Flanders is fine. I'm fine with that. Flanders is pretty hot in my opinion sometimes. Many are saying this. Or most often calling me a dummy that got owned. And that's normal. You know, that is YouTube in a nutshell. Audiences failing to actually engage with these ideas beyond repeating what their fave is saying or using their fave's points as an alley-oop to an epic own dunk. But it is just another example of how echo chamber tendencies are what happens on here. However, Think Before You Sleep later makes a more specific critique, which is leftist content creators' alleged fear-mongering about the algorithm.
It's funny how they'll say that they aren't in an echo chamber when they are constantly trying to convince people that watching your first Jordan Peterson video means you're only about a week away from joining the alt-right. Statements like that are called fear-mongering. That's someone who doesn't want you to look at opposing viewpoints.
What he says there is a misrepresentation of what we mean when we talk about algorithmic radicalization. The point isn't that people are incapable of viewing alternative perspectives without turning into extremists. I've never argued that, and none of the leftist channels he's probably talking about, I've never seen them say this. The real argument is that the algorithm does play a role in how people discover political content, and that role can be very harmful and shouldn't be ignored, especially when young, impressionable people are the target audiences. I have similar gripes with the right-wing radicalization pipeline narrative. I think it's pretty overplayed. I think the primary push to detail this wasn't actually from any of the creators people have decided to label BreadTube, but from think pieces with anecdotes that often relied on wishful thinking about the function of left-wing content on the internet. I also think that the YouTube landscape has changed a lot since, 2016, with the platform cracking down pretty hard on the more extremist channels, the so-called ends of the pipeline. With that said, though, to act like the algorithm isn't still a problem, isn't still something that leads people into harmful, regressive rabbit holes, that is just an uninformed perspective. Just look at the kids getting brainwashed by manosphere content. They're quoting Andrew Tate in class, they're displaying extremely misogynistic behavior, they're sexually harassing their classmates. All things that teachers weren't reporting before kids started watching this crap. If Think Before You Sleep's individualistic logic is to be applied here, then problems like these will only grow in prevalence. No, I don't think you turn alt-right after a week of watching Jordan Peterson videos, but a week of Jordan Peterson videos is going to right-wingify your algorithm like crazy, and this algorithmic change is an echo chamber, its own form of echo chamber. And unless you are really taking into account how this is shifting on your page, which I think for a lot of people isn't an easy thing to do, read tons of comments from people that have been into these spaces. That's not good for people, Most viewers will see a perspective and not become a psycho from it, but the ones that can't, they are not helped by this pipeline. This argument is made under the guise that everyone logs into the tube as an unbiased centrist consumer of content, when they don't. Obviously that's not the case. This stuff affects people. Studying and outlining the harmful effects, I don't think that's a bad thing. It's not fear-mongering, it's just being responsible, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, and that's it. So to give some concluding thoughts here briefly about this video, that's how you can tell I'm not that practiced of a writer, that I end my scripts with, in conclusion. Throughout all of society, in the world, has been my thesis statement. To give some concluding thoughts here, I think large corporations are bad. I think ad campaigns that support them are also bad. But I think that fat people being in those campaigns is a pretty normal thing. And freaking out about it to the extent that anti-woke people do is weird. It's just seems a little like insane. I don't care that much about what video game characters should wear, but there are clearly trends in games that depict women in an overtly sexual manner for no real reason. And whenever anti-woke channels deny this, it's silly and doesn't make any sense as an argument. So, you know, that's why I talk about it here. All the other points, you get it. If you watched, you understand. So maybe you don't, maybe you disagree. Comment below, go ahead. If he responds to this, I guess it's just going to be another even longer video. If I have the fucking energy to do it, let's do it. But perhaps new source material would be a good place to start. So yeah, that's it. Sorry for the delay. I've had a bunch of stuff going on IRL, which means in real life for those of you that are like me. Got some more videos on the way soon. Hope you are fine, and I'll see you later. Thanks for ciao.